Okay, we're recording now. Okay, this is text 10, the Bhagavad-gītā as it is, not as we think it is. Okay, here's Melissa. Great. Okay, now we have Melissa. Awesome. Melissa, what happened?
So I clicked on join from your browser. It was like at the bottom of the page.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I sent you another link. Did that work when you clicked on the... Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I figured if I sent you another one, that might work. Okay, can you see the screen, Melissa?
Yes.
All right, cool. All right, we're on text 10 of chapter 15. And I'm just going to go ahead and read the Sanskrit and the synonyms, and we'll just go ahead down the line. Melissa, you can read the translation purport, and then Alan, you can read the next one, translation and purport, and then Tim, you can read the next one. We got Tim here. He's from Mount Pleasant, right? West Virginia. Is that right, Tim?
Port Pleasant.
Port Pleasant. Yeah, that's like right on the river there, in between Charleston and some other town, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he works on a riverboat. He's a young man, 18 years old. He bought like a boatload of books from me. So are you reading the books at all?
I am.
Oh, cool. I'm so glad. That makes my day to hear that you're reading the books. Okay, now we're going to read this. I'm going to start out with a Sanskrit here. Text 10. Urukramantam stitam vapi bujanam vagunanvitam vimudhan nanopasyanti pasyanti jnana chakshusha. Synonyms. Utkramantam, quitting the body, stitam, situated in the body. Vaapi, either bujanam, enjoying va, or guna anvitam, under the spell of the modes of material nature. Vimudha, that's me, foolish persons. Na, never. Anupasyanti, can see. Pasyanti, can see. Jnana chakshush, those who have the eyes of knowledge. Go ahead, Melissa, read the translation and the purport.
The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature, but one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. The word Nanya Kaksusa is very
Jnana chakshush. C is always pronounced with a CH, and JN is always pronounced gyan, like gyan. Gyan chakshush, that's good.
Thank you. Without knowledge, one cannot understand how a living entity leaves his present body, nor what the form of the body he is going to take in the next life, nor even why he is living in a particular type of body. This requires a great amount of knowledge, understood from Bhagavad-gītā and similar literatures, heard from a bona fide spiritual master. One who is trained to perceive all these things is fortunate. Every living entity is quitting his body under certain circumstances. He is living under certain circumstances, and he is enjoying under certain circumstances, under the spell of material nature. As a result, he is suffering different kinds of happiness and distress under the illusion of sense enjoyment. Persons who are everlastingly fooled by lust and desire lose all power to understand their change of body and their stay in a particular body. They cannot comprehend it. Those who have developed spiritual knowledge, however, and their stay in can see in that spirit is different from the body that is changing. Let me start that one over. Those who have developed spiritual knowledge, however, can see that the spirit is different from the body and is changing its body and enjoying in different ways. A person in such knowledge can understand how the conditioned living entity is suffering in this material existence. Therefore, those who are highly developed in Krishna consciousness try their best to give this knowledge to the people in general, for their conditional life is very much troublesome. They should come out of it and be Krishna conscious and liberate themselves to transfer to the spiritual world.
Yeah, I was just reading something from, there was a book that I forgot to read. Can you believe it, Melissa? I forgot to read one of Prabhupada's books. It's called The Perfection of Yoga. And Prabhupada was talking about how this material world is kind of like an insane asylum. And I put a picture up of like a psych ward with two nurses in front of it. You know, it's like some kind of game or something. But I put a quote from it said, "This material world is like a psych ward, and more or less everybody's pretty much insane. And the whole idea is to get out of this insane asylum." So, yeah, that was chapter 3. Anybody who wants to look at that can look at my timeline if you're on Facebook. I know Alan's not on Facebook, and that's good, you know, because it's just a huge pile of garbage unless you're using it for Krishna consciousness. Okay, here's the next one, and Alan, you can read the translation and the purport. These are pretty short purports for these verses here. Yatanto yoginas shainam pasyanti atmani avastitam yatanto pi akritat mano nainam pasyanti achetasa. Synonyms: yantanta, endeavoring; yogina, transcendentalists; cha, also; enam, this; pasyanti, can see; atmani, in the self; avastitam, situated; yatanta, endeavoring; api, although; akrita atmana, those without self-realization; na, do not; enam, this; pasyanti, see; achetasa, having undeveloped minds. Go ahead, Alan.
The endeavoring, excuse me, the endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly. But those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try. There are many transcendental. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
There are many transcendentalists on the path of spiritual self-realization, but one who is not situated in self-realization cannot see how things are changing in the body of the living entity. The word
yogina
is significant in this connection. In the present day, there are many so-called yogis, and there are many so-called associations of yogis, but they are actually blind in the matter of self-realization. They are simply addicted to some sort of gymnastics exercise and are satisfied if the body is well built and healthy. They have no other information. They are called what is that word?
Yatanto pi akritatmana.
Thank you. Even though they are endeavoring in so-called yoga systems, they are not self-realized. Such people cannot understand the process of the transmigration of the soul. Only those who are actually in the yoga system and have realized the self, the world, and the Supreme Lord, in other words, the Bhakti Yogas, those engaged in pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness, can understand how things are taking place.
Yeah, see, so, you know, we're practicing yoga, and a lot of people that are attracted to this yoga, especially, you know, they come to our Pittsburgh Kirtan Center. This is called mantra yoga because we chant the mantras that chant the names of God. And so this is called bhakti yoga. It's direct connection. Now, other types of yoga, like, you know, the yoga that was taught to Arjuna in the Bhagavad-gītā, even Arjuna, who's such a highly qualified personality, he said, this seems undurable and difficult. You know, it's hard to control the mind. It's difficult. You have to sit in a secluded place. You have to stare at the tip of the nose. You have to sit alone, and then you have to concentrate on the super soul within the heart. And that's just not possible, but the sound vibration is a lot easier. And so even though all these different yoga exercises are meant for controlling the mind and the senses, people don't do that nowadays. They just think it's some kind of gymnastics exercise. You got a bunch of portly matrons that are going to yoga classes so they can get thin and have better sex life, you know. But that's not the goal of yoga. The goal of yoga is to be self-realized by connecting with the spirit soul or super soul within the heart. And so that is the direct way to do that is bhakti yoga. And it's by chanting the names of Krishna, and by reading these books, we can directly understand and get knowledge and get guidance from Krishna from within the heart. There's two birds in the tree, like there's a super soul and the soul. They're both within the heart. And the super soul is like the witnessing bird. And then the soul is like the eating bird. He's eating and enjoying the fruits of the tree. But the super soul is just a witness, and he's just waiting for his friend to turn his face toward him so that he can, give him his friendship and instruction. And the whole purpose of yoga is to have a realization and a relationship with the supreme personality of Godhead who is within our hearts. And it's an awakening process. And the process of yoga is meant to gradually accomplish that. There's jnana yoga and there's karma yoga, like we've covered in the beginnings of Bhagavad-gītā. And these are like stepping stones, but bhakti yoga is like the direct path. It's like, instead of a staircase one at a time, you just take the elevator to the top floor. So that's the bhakti yoga. It's direct connection with Krishna through his holy name. And that's the recommended process in this age. Even Arjuna couldn't do the yoga process that Krishna delineated in the Bhagavad-gītā in earlier chapters. So this is the best way to do it. Just read these books, chant the holy name, and especially congregationally, if you can come down to our Kirtan Center. Alan was there the other day. And hey, Melissa, did you go to the Festival of Colors?
I didn't. I've been sick, and I missed the last 3 kirtans because I've been sick, and then I'm probably
going to miss. Did you figure out what it is that you have?
But I have my ukulele in the back here if you want me to play a little bit. Well, it was a couple things. I got sick, and then I got sick again.
Oh yeah, I saw Coconut back there. He's okay, right?
Yeah. She's just been hopping around like a bunny.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's actually right here. I don't know if you can see her.
Oh, there she is. Yeah. All right. Well, she's taking advantage of the holy name too.
She's looking at you right now.
Hey, Coconut. All right. So we're going to do next text 12, and then Tim, you can read the translation and one paragraph of the purport, and I'll read the second paragraph. Yad aditya gatam tejo jagad sayate kilam yach chandras masi yach chagno tat tejo vidi mamakam. Synonyms: yat, that which, aditya gatam, in the sunshine, teja, splendor, jagat, the whole world, sayate, illuminates, akilam, entirely, yat, that which, chandramasi, in the moon, yet that which also agno, in fire, tat, that, teja, splendor, vidi, understand, mamakam, from me. Go ahead, Tim, read the first the translation in the first paragraph.
All right. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me. And the splendor of the moon and the splendor of the fire also from me. The unintelligent cannot understand how things are taking place, but one can begin to be established in the knowledge by understanding what the Lord explains here. Everyone sees the sun, moon, fire, and electricity. One should simply try to understand that the splendor of the sun, the splendor of the moon, and the splendor of the electricity or fire are coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And such a conception of life, the beginning of Krishna consciousness, lies a great deal of advancement for the conditioned soul in this material world. The living entities are essentially the parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, and he is giving herewith the hint how they can come back to Godhead, back to home.
Yeah, there's in the 10th chapter, Krishna explains that I'm the light of the sun and the moon. I'm the taste of the water, the heat and the fire. He's like the essence of everything. Everything comes from him. So actually the light, the sun and the moon are Krishna's eyes. there's the universal form of Krishna, and you can actually remember Krishna if you think every time you're drinking water, you think this is the taste of Krishna. Even an alcoholic, if he was drinking wine or something, if he was thinking this is the taste of Krishna every time he took a sip of wine, you'd become Krishna conscious. So this is a way to remember Krishna, because Krishna is everywhere. I'll read the second paragraph and then we'll start from the next verse. From this verse, we can understand that the sun is illuminating the whole solar system. There are different universes and solar systems that are different suns, moons, planets also. But in each universe, there's only one sun. As stated in Bhagavad-gītā 10:21, the moon is one of the stars. Nakshatranam aham shashi. Sunlight is due to the spiritual effulgence in the spiritual sky of the Supreme Lord. With the rise of the sun, the activities of human beings are set up. They set fire to prepare their foodstuff. They set fire to start the factories. So many things are done with the help of the fire. Therefore, sunrise, fire, and moonlight are so pleasing to the living entities. Without their help, no living entity can live. So if one can understand that the light and splendor of the sun, moon, and fire are emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, then one's Krishna consciousness will begin. By the moonshine, all the vegetables are nourished. The moonshine is so pleasing that people can easily understand that they're living by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Without his mercy, there cannot be sun, and without his mercy, there cannot be moon. Without his mercy, there cannot be fire. Without the help of the sun, moon, and fire, no one can live. These are some thoughts to provoke Krishna consciousness in the conditioned soul. It says that the moon actually nourishes the vegetables, the moonlight. You know, and actually my name, Śikṣāṣtaka, one of the verses, the first verses says, it's the benediction moon which spreads the lotus of the lotus benediction of, you know, the Krishna consciousness is the holy name. Anyway, I'll read the next Sanskrit and synonyms here. Gamavisya chabutani daryami ahem ojasa pusnami cha sudhi sarva samabhutvara satmaka. Translation: Gam, the planets, Avishya, entering, Cha, also, Bhutani, the living entities, Dharayami, sustain, Aham, I, Ojasa, by my energy, Pushnami, am nourishing, Cha, and Asodi, vegetables, Sarva, all, Soma, the moon, Bhutva, becoming, Rasa Atmaka, supplying the juice. That's just what I was talking about. Okay, go ahead, Melissa.
I enter into each planet, and my energy, they stay, and by my energy, they stay in orbit. I become the moon, and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. It is understood that all the planets are floating in the air only by the energy of the Lord. The Lord enters into every atom, every planet, and every living being. That is discussed in the Brahma Samrita. It is said, therefore, that one planetary portion or plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paramatma, enters into the planets, the universe, the living entity, and even into the atom. So due to his entrance, everything is appropriately manifested. When the spirit soul is there, a living man can float on the water. But when the living spark is out of the body and the body is dead, the body sinks. Of course, when it is decomposed, it floats, just like the straw and other things. But as soon as the man is dead, he at once sinks in the water. I'm sorry. Similarly, all these planets are floating in space, and this is due to the entrance of the supreme energy of the personality of Godhead. This energy is sustaining each planet just like a handful of dust. If someone holds a handful of dust, there is no possibility of the dust falling, but if one throws it in the air, it will fall down. Similarly, these planets, which are floating in the air, are actually held in the fist of the universal form of the Supreme Lord. That's a lot of fists. By his strength and energy, all moving and non-moving things may stay in their place. It is said in the Vedic hymns that because of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sun is shining and the planets are steadily moving. Were it not for him, all the planets would scatter, like dust in the air, and perish. Similarly, it is due to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that the moon nourishes all vegetables. Due to the moon's influence, the vegetables become delicious. Without the moonshine, the vegetables can neither grow nor taste succulent. Human society is working, living comfortably, and enjoying food due to the supply from the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, mankind could not survive. The word rasam
Rasatmaka.
Rasatmaka is very significant. Everything becomes palatable by the agency of the Supreme Lord through the influence of the moon.
Well, you're saying it, you take a lot of fists to hold up the universes. There's not only one universe, you know, there's millions of universes. And what's holding it up is actually Balaram. Balaram is a second expansion of plenary expansion of Krishna. And an expansion of Balaram is Ananta Shesh. He's a serpent with 1,000 hoods. And one universe, it fits on the head of Ananta Shesh, and he doesn't even notice it. And so that is the power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's actually, you know, they talk about gravity and all these things, but actually everything is maintained and held by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's not an impersonal thing. So Lord Ananta Shesh, he is holding up all these universes, and all the universes actually come out of the body of Mahavishnu, who is lying in the causal ocean. All the universes come out of the pores of the holes in his body, and they're with one inhale, and when he inhales, they all go back into his body. When he exhales, they all come out. And that inhaling and exhaling is like billions of years. So that's one breath of Mahavishnu. And Mahavishnu is just the plenary expansion, a portion of Krishna. So that's how great Krishna is. Krishna is the origin of all these different incarnations and expansions that are directing the different universal activities. And we're just like, you know, we think we're such great personalities, but we're just like a little tiny person living in a little tiny borough in Pittsburgh, which is a little tiny town, a little tiny state. And, you know, on this extremely small speck of dust on the Earth, which is just one planet in millions of solar systems and millions of universes. And all the universes put together is only 1/3 or 1/4 of the entire creation of God. The other 3/4 is the spiritual world, which everybody lives eternally, full of knowledge and bliss. And we are just living here temporarily, full of ignorance and miserable. So we got to get out of this place, because it is an insane asylum. And, you know, the devotee doesn't care as long as he can serve Krishna. But, you know, this world is not a very nice place because the repetition of birth, death, old age, and disease are the evils of this material world. So that's why we have to try to escape it in this lifetime, and then we can go back to the spiritual world. So I'll read the next Sanskrit and synonyms here. Aham Vaishnavnaro Bhutva Praninam Deham Ashrita Pranapana Samayukta Pachampi Anam Chaturvidam. Synonyms: Aham, I, Vaishvarnara, my plenary portion, as the digesting fire, Bhutva, becoming, Praninam, of all living entities, Deham, in the bodies, Ashrita, situated, Prana, the outgoing air, Apana, the downgoing air, Samayukta, keeping in balance, Pachami, I digest, Anam, foodstuff, Chaturvidam, the 4 kinds. Go ahead, Alan.
I am the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities, and I join with the air of life, outgoing and incoming. to digest the 4 kinds of food stuff. According to Ayurvedic Sastra, we understand that there is a fire in the stomach which digests all the food sent there. When the fire is not blazing, there is no hunger. And when the fire is in order, we become hungry. Sometimes when the fire is not going nicely, treatment is required. In any case, the fire is representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vedic mantras,
Brihadaranyaka Upanishad.
Upanishad, yeah, also confirm that the Supreme Lord or Brahman is situated in the form of fire within the stomach and is digesting all kinds of food stuff.
Yayam Agnir Vaishvanaro Yoyam Antapurushe Yanedam Anam Pachyate.
Therefore, since he is helping the digestion of all kinds of food stuff, the living entity is not independent in the eating process. Unless the Supreme Lord helps him in digesting, there is no possibility of eating. He thus produces and digests foodstuff, and by his grace, we are enjoying life. In the Vedanta Sutra, this is also confirmed.
Sabdavyo Nata Pratistanacha.
The Lord is situated within sound, and within the body, and within the air, and even within the stomach as the digestive force. There are 4 kinds of food stuff. Some are drunk, some are chewed, some are licked up, and some are sucked. And he is the digestive force of all of them.
Yeah, we can't even eat without Krishna. We can't. Actually, the senses are controlled by various demigods as well. So everything is controlled. We think we're independent, we think we're free. We think we're like, we're doing everything, but we actually, not a blade of grass moves without Krishna's sanction. Text 15. Sarvasichaham, this is a famous verse here. Sarvasichaham hridi sanivisto matir smiti gyanam aponam cha vedascha savaraham vivedio vedanta kritveda vid evachaham. Sarvasa, of all living beings, cha and aham, I, hridi, in the heart, sanivista, situated, mata, from me, smriti, remembrance, jnanam, knowledge, apohanam, forgetfulness, cha and, vedai, by the Vedas, cha also, sarvai, all, aham, I am, eva, certainly, Vedya, knowable, Vedanta Krit, the compiler of the Vedanta, Vedavit, the knower of the Vedas, eva, certainly, cha and, aham, I. Go ahead, Tim. Read the translation of the first paragraph. Take your mic off. Put your mic on. If you're still there. Tim? Listening?
You might be able to unmute him, Shik.
I'm going to ask him to unmute. Hey, Tim, are you there? Anyway, I don't know if he's there or not, but I'm going to go ahead and read this first paragraph. This is a very important verse. The Supreme Lord is situated as Paramatma in everyone's heart, and it is from him that all activities are initiated. The living entity forgets everything of his past life, and he has to act, but he has to act according to the direction of the Supreme Lord, who is the witness of all his work. Therefore, he begins his work according to his past deeds. Required knowledge is supplied to him, and remembrance is given to him, and he forgets also about his past life. Thus, the Lord is not only all-pervading, he's also localized in every individual heart. He awards the different fruit of results. He is worshipable not only as the impersonal Brahman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the localized Paramatma, but as the form of the incarnation of the Vedas as well. The Vedas give the right direction to people so that they can properly mold their lives and come back to Godhead, back to home. Vedas offer knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and Krishna in his incarnation as Vyasadeva is the compiler of the Vedanta Sutra. The commentation on Vedanta Sutra by Vyasadeva in the Srimad Bhagavatam gives the real understanding of Vedanta Sutra. The Supreme Lord is so full that for the deliverance of a conditioned soul, he is the supplier and digester of foodstuff, the witness of all his activities. and the giver of knowledge in the form of the Vedas, and as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, the teacher of the Bhagavad-gītā. He is worshipable by the conditioned soul. Thus, God is all good, God is all merciful. Melissa, you want to read this next paragraph here?
Anta pravisya sasa jananam. The living entity forgets as soon as he quits his present body, but he begins his work again, initiated by the Supreme Lord. Although he forgets, the Lord gives him the intelligence to renew his work where he ended his last life. So not only does a living entity enjoy or suffer in this world according to the dictation from the Supreme Lord, situated locally in the heart, but he receives the opportunity to understand the Vedas from him. If one is serious about understanding the Vedic knowledge, then Krishna gives the required intelligence. Why does he present the Vedic knowledge for understanding? Because a living entity individually needs to understand Krishna. Vedic literature confirms this. Yo sao sarver veder gyate. In all Vedic literature, beginning from the four Vedas, Vedanta Sutra, and the Upanishads and Puranas, the glories of the Supreme Lord are celebrated. By performance of Vedic rituals, discussion of the Vedic philosophy, and worship of the Lord in devotional service, he is attained. Therefore, the purpose of the Vedas is to understand Krishna. The Vedas give us direction by which to understand Krishna and the process of realizing him. The ultimate goal is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vedanta Sutra 114 confirms this in the following words. Tat tu samanvayat. One can attain perfection in 3 stages. By understanding Vedic literature, one can understand his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By performing the different processes, one can approach him. And at the end, one can attain the supreme goal, who is no other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this verse, the purpose of the Vedas, the understanding of the Vedas, and the goal of the Vedas are clearly defined.
Okay, so this is an important verse because, a lot of people say that it doesn't matter what you believe in, everything leads to the same path or the same goal. But this show, you can't just make up a religion. Krishna is the compiler of Vedanta. He is the Vedas, and he is the knower of the Vedas, and he transmits the Vedas from the spiritual world. The spiritual master is the representative of Krishna, and when he speaks, he's not speaking himself. Krishna is speaking through him. He's the transparent via medium of Krishna. And so when we're speaking the Vedas, we're speaking the knowledge that's coming down from the spiritual world to the living entity. And so this is like the Bhagavad-gītā is like a 24/7 self-help book with Krishna as the instructor. The Vedas, and especially the Vedas that were spoken by Krishna himself, were meant for mankind to help him to develop a relationship with Krishna. And when we develop that relationship, our consciousness is gradually purified and we can go back to the spiritual world. We only have 1 minute left. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Well, I do have a question. So, it talks about how we can't digest any food without Krishna. But I mean, there's lots of people eating meat. Does it talk about like what happens when you eat meat?
Well, the human beings also can eat meat. They have 2 incisors in their mouth, like 2 sharp teeth on either side like that. And that's for ripping flesh, but that's only and we have a very short and like tigers are meant for eating meat practically exclusively, like cats. They don't eat anything other than meat. They have digestive forces too, but they're meant to eat meat. They can't eat anything else. But human beings are meant to eat what is offered to Krishna, and Krishna doesn't like meat, so we don't offer it to him. My mother used to say, "Why don't you eat meat?" And I say, because Krishna doesn't like meat, and Krishna doesn't like eggs. But anyway, we're running out of time. We got less than a minute left. I want to thank everybody for coming. This will be posted on my, the YouTube channel. So if you missed